There we go. Hello, everyone. I'm going to be demoing how to create a plugin. So a plugin is just a class library. So in Visual Studio, we'll do new project and class library framework. Okay, and we're going to call it DDocs new plugin. And once again, just a class library. So we'll rename this new plugin. And all we have to do is add a reference to the plugin library. So we'll go into Accent JobServer, plugin, bin, debug, Accent JobServer plugin. And this is what used to be the iJob interface, but now contains the new plugin methodology. So we'll add a using Accent JobServer plugin. So for our plugin to become a plugin, we need to derive it from this module class. And that contains all the parameter handling and all kinds of stuff that we used to have to do manually. So let me just quickly, to get rid of this little error here, we're going to declare a constructor that calls the base with the name and no max instance count. And then override run. So let me add a parameter. So I'm going to, instead of having all that XML we used to deal with, we can just use parameter. We can just use parameter decorators. So if I want a public string add to output, we would use a param def decorator. And we can add description in there. We have a concept of in and out parameters. In parameters only come in and out, accepts data coming in, and a post data back to the server coming out, so that as you can have multiple steps in a job, and then each plugin will be able to pass data to the next plugin if so desired. So we'll just make this in. And that's it. No more XML, no more job control interface. So when you go to use this plugin in the JobServer management app, it'll know that this is a parameter and that we have to declare it. So let me just quickly, where is that? Let me just quickly copy something so you have to watch me type. But for run, what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop to 100, and I'm going to use. So all this does is it loops a few times, and this set message is what will appear in the monitor. So we're going to have our add to output parameter, and we're going to show a percentage of completed. And that's all there is to it. That's all you need to do to create a new plugin. Once again, there's no more XML, there's no more iJob control, and module contains all the methods that we need to communicate with the plugin. So let me build this. Web, am I missing anything, or is everything?
No, looks good.
Okay.
And
So
can I interject one thing now? I glossed over that. It's an important thing that we're trying to figure out how to make better from a user interface perspective, but that notion of essentially chaining parameters. When you set up a job, the job server actually creates a variable pool that exists through each of the steps. So if step one moved a file someplace or took a particular action and it needed to be known by subsequent steps, you can just use the out parameter option and we will save that within the job context so that when you come along and run another step, you can use that as you can reference that variable and it'll get picked up and continue on. And in fact, that's how the the file watcher trigger worked in the past. Is that if you've used this in the past, the file watcher trigger, you specified a path, and then that was turned around and plugged into the the job, the module, the plugin, as we called it back then, received a path parameter. So it still works the same way. We've got the file watcher trigger that has a path parameter that's both in and out. The path parameter gets pushed into the job, the overall job context, and then the first step can pick that value up and use it. The second step could use it too if it needed to. So go ahead, Lee.
okay, so we've built the plugin. So what I need to do is copy it to the plugins directory. So that would be on my machine. I have a build folder for JobServer, and there is a modules folder that holds the plugins. Now we also have the tasks folder that's set up to hold the old iJob interface. So we are supporting that at this moment. But that's where the old iJob ones go. Modules is where the new plugin modules go. So let me go to my D docs, new plugin, bin, debug. So we'll copy what's in here and let's make a new plugin folder. And then I will start the job server. So let me go back in the build. I'm running the job server as an app, but when we release it, it'll be a service. We have for debug mode, we can do both. So here's the interface. We're going to log on to my local machine, create a new job, LJW test 1. We'll make it a scheduler trigger to run every 15 seconds. New step.
Last one there. New plugin.
New plugin. Yep. And add to output is going to you'll see this in the monitor window. So we'll save that. Save that. We'll enable it. Go to the monitor. And in about 15 seconds or so, you'll see the job start. And
Jeopardy music plays here.
And there it is. And there's my add to output string. And there is the percentage complete.
So for those, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lee.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say for those that have the iJob, existing iJob plugins that they're using, as Lee mentioned, we are fully supporting them. The command line. So if you could just go back into any one of those jobs and just for editing purposes, and then just go to one of the steps, or newest step, whatever. So all the entries in there, like SQL exec shutdown, all of those, they're actually still iJob plugins. So all of these still work. Everything that you have should continue to work. So I'm just trying to think now if there's anything else that we've missed in terms of functionality or things that we're going to do that we haven't shown you, and I can't think of any. So that's really the extent of it. I'm actually surprised that we finished on time. So I guess I want to open the floor to questions, comments, opinions, whatever, on what you've seen, and for Matt and for Bob, who are current users of the product. Is this a welcome improvement? Are there things that you'd want to see that you're not seeing yet?
I'm happy with what I'm seeing.
How about you, Bob?
I love it, man.
I love to hear that. I love to hear your enthusiasm.
I've been using the JobServer for 10 years or whatever it is. The same JobServer. I have all these XML snippets that I have to go back to. How do you do a file watcher and everything? This is great. This is a huge improvement to what we use. Very excited to get this implemented.
So we actually have an installer. I'm not sure if we'll make it available. I'd like to say we'll make it available later this week. There's still just a few, it's definitely going to be some revisions. It's not going to be a one and done. We'll probably have several releases, but I think that we probably want to button up a few things before, we release, essentially, .01 of this of the platform.
Do you think that first release, at least first beta release, will have the JobServer management console be the entry point for deploying jobs instead of copy paste?
So that's a great question. It's on our nice to have. It depends on. So we have a list of things that we would like to do before we release what I'll call the GA release, or the general audience release, the real world release. That is on our nice to have list. It will depend on how many things we still have to fix, I think. But it's probably a strong possibility that's something we can work in there. That isn't necessarily a showstopper for you right now yet, right? But you said you guys were getting more oversight in your group.
Yeah, they're buttoning things down. Definitely not a showstopper, especially considering, I think we're still some ways away from vetting and helping you guys test and debug this. We're still some time away from putting it into production, but so I was just curious if that was going to be out sooner rather than later. That's all.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I'm hoping that this type of session, we are recording this. There are some other people that I'm going to share this with, and you're not alone in this space. I mean, there are a lot of people that I know. Joe goes through the same problem he's working down at University of Penn, and they have a would you say a strict DevOps procedure there, Joe, in terms of access to production resources?
Yeah, it's not the most fun thing to try and get those things in. Yeah.
So I know he deals with it. You're starting to deal with it. I know there are going to be other enterprises that are locking down, deployment types of things. So being able to, essentially to be through the REST API. So we have looked at everything we've done with the vision that the REST API is how we're communicating with the service, and whether it be through via the application or via website, the idea is, supply us with a zip file that is your payload, and upload it, and then we'll stage it and make it available. And that way, in your environment, you don't have to worry about dealing with the DevOps people. You'll be able to deploy things and not have to get them involved in the process. So yeah, I think that's important. Is there anything else that's like really critical for you, or anybody else? Anybody else have opinion or features that might seem nice that are missing? Anything like that would be helpful in determining what we put at the top of our list. All right. So, John, what did you think of this? I mean, this is the first time you've,
Me, John?
Yes, you, John. And I don't think there's another John on the call. But,
I was just excited to hear Joe's voice for the first time in like 17 or 18 years. Hi, Joe. No, it looks good. Actually, I have a bunch of
Hey,
questions
buddy.
that I'll take offline. Hey, Joe.
Okay.
Good to hear you.
Hey, Bill, thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm going to have to bail, but it was very interesting. Can I count on a copy of the recording? The link being sent to us.
Yes,
so I can
absolutely.
share it. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. I appreciate you spending your time. Appreciate it. No, it's valuable. Sure. Bye-bye. So,
I do want to thank Lee for implementing the old iJob for us so that we have backwards compatibility.
My pleasure.
So, yeah, no, I mean, it's like, oh, I'll just do it anyway, right? Type of thing. So, yeah, I'm really hoping that from a rollout from Matt and Bob, we're calling you the field testers because you're the guys that are actually using it outside of our direct control, if you will. I mean, we've got two other installations where we use it right now, and it's because it's in conjunction with applications that we've written. So it's easy for us to just say, oh well, this is a problem, we'll fix this or whatever. So being able to have you guys install this someplace, and then just be able to take one or two of your plugins and move them over, or move them over as you see fit, just to test out the behavior of things is is very helpful. This will side by side install, so this is oh, I'm sorry, Bob, I didn't realize that you sent me yes, you could. I didn't see that. I didn't see your text. I'm sorry, Bob. Yes, you could actually create a trigger that fires off whenever there's a full moon. So if you've got a if you had an executive said that, yeah, I wanted to be new moon, you could figure that out and write your own trigger for that. So I mean so the option, on one hand, we're sitting sort of squarely in that workload automation type of place, but we see the platform as having additional facets that make its use go beyond that. Like I said, I just thought of IoT today. I don't know what inspired me, but so well, if you wrote a trigger that went round robin and looked at a bunch of IoT sensors, and if you were monitoring temperature, let's say, you could have you could be pulling in that data every 30 seconds and writing it to a database, and have another thing that says, oh well, if it goes above a certain amount, send an email. So you could have a whole bunch of things related to IoT processing. I hate using that term because it's like the cloud. It's just a new word for old things. It has applicability as an adjunct to products. So, for those of you who are familiar with our DB Replicate product, the gentleman who was just left there, he's the CIO at a company called Supply One, and they use our DB Replicate plugin, which was also born back in the days of Deb, to consolidate 18 different physical locations into a single BI database. And the DB Replicate runs as a plugin in the JobServer, and then there's a corresponding management tool. Right now, you have to do all your prep work in the management tool for the DB Replicate, and then you come into the JobServer and you have to do, your scheduling and everything else there. The goal is to sort of push the JobServer more to the back and have that custom specialized application that's dealing with configuring all the DB Replicate's needs by going right through the REST API. It doesn't really need to use the management tool as a management front end. So the JobServer and its capabilities can become part of a larger application that is sort of an automated type of, implementation. The other side of that is, you could have a web application where, you have a reports or whatever you're doing that you don't want to have the user sit and wait for. You could create a little, one pager there where, run this report or do this operation. Here are the parameters. Hit go and send it to the JobServer, and the JobServer can, do the processing, create the report, and then you have when you start a job, you actually get a GUID back that tells you, allows you to go and check on the job. So there's a two-way connection there to be more interactive in the process. So JobServer provides a lot of different possible implementation strategies beyond just running something every 30 seconds. So, so I'm hoping that somebody will like something about it that makes it different than something that's simply a workload manager that's primarily scheduling or whatever. So that's everything. Any other questions or comments? I am available. You all got my email. If you've got individual questions you want to hit me up with, or you've got, you want to talk, you want to give me ideas, or you have suggestions, I'm happy. I'm welcome. I welcome them all. And like I said, the goal is to try to have an initial install available to those who want it by the end of the week, and go from there. All right. So if that's it, anything else? Any last minute?
Yeah,
Nope.
hey Webb, this is
Yeah.
Omen speaking. Hey,
Hey, how you doing?
I just wanted to comment. This is really impressive, buddy. I
Well,
like
thank
it.
you.
The interface seems
Super.
like you really thought of like all the different options and stuff. This is great.
We tried. I'm hoping that you'll find something more that we need to do. There are some things. Joe has been part of our our what do you want to call it? I've called him my UI czar. So,
Yeah.
he's been forcing various things, and one of the things we're going to do with the monitor is Lee, since you have it up, can you click on monitor real quick?
Yep.
So one of the things we want to do here so this could have a lot of different jobs running in it. So we're going to add a pane to the left of refresh, but still in that page that'll list just the job defs themselves and say, whether it's what it's running and how many jobs are running, so you can see at a glance, what's going on. Yeah, and I mean, and there's plans for other stats, like we're trying to keep track of wait and run times, and so Lee, do me a favor, just double click into your job there, just for an edit. No, in the tree. So,
Gotta bail, guys. Have a good day.
Alrighty.
Thank you, Webb. We'll talk.
Sure. All right. So so here at the bottom, you can see last run date, next run date. Although we don't have it showing up yet, there'll be like an average run time and a max run time, so you can, if a job gets stuck or it's taking longer to run in some cases, you'll know about that. So there's a lot of history being recorded. So there could be some really fancy dashboards for those that like the flashing lights. So there's a lot of growth
I
potential.
have
We
a
just need to
question,
know
Bill.
what's. Sure.
Earlier you had that job that was running that you kind of wished wasn't running. And I'm wondering if, I don't think it's implemented yet, but is it in the workflow to implement a right click and terminate job?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And then my follow-up question to that is, when a job is terminated, what actually happens? Does it kick anything back to the job so you could write something in your job to say, if I'm being terminated, do this cleanup task first and then terminate? Or
That's a great thing. I don't think we have that. I will have to, right now, yeah, that is a good question, and I don't think we have anything specific for that. So I'm going to make a note to, well, we do have a stop job, right, Lee? We have a stop method in the module, right? Do we have
Yes.
a stop? Yeah, so we do have a way of, I don't know whether we've really tested that yet, or done anything specific yet with it, because we really haven't implemented the kill. But yeah, so the idea there would be is that, yes, you would right click on the job, or, there'd be a button someplace and you'd say, stop this job. And, we would call, whatever the running step is, there would be a stop, behavior.
you might
that
even
you
need
could,
like two different kinds of kill, like a soft kill and a hard kill.
yeah, I could see that being, yeah, let me make a note of that. All right.
Also
anything else?
cancel on queued ones. If you've got stuff queued up, right click and cancel.
Yeah, I mean, for under the covers, it would still be a stop for the job itself
fine.
overall, but yeah.
I said I had a use case for that. I'll give you the 10-second story.
Sure.
We have that ARMS customer sync, and it runs in 10 seconds. We run it every 5 minutes. But every now and then, something weird happens on the eSQL server, and for an hour, that sync takes an hour to run, and we're running it every 5 minutes. So it'll only allow one instance to run, but 40 instances will get queued.
So that actually will, you can fix that. Lee, could you go in to click on your configure button on the scheduler?
On the scheduler?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, no, that won't fix. I'm sorry. I was, it's funny. You get to the point with so much functionality that you start to like lose a grip on some things. I was thinking that maybe you could just say skip missed execution times. They're not actually missed. They're sitting in the queue.
Yeah, so it's like a skip if running instead of queuing it up. It would just say, okay, because I run it every 5 minutes, I don't need it to queue them. If it's already running because it's dragging on, it could just skip it and run 5 minutes from the time the previous one ends.
Okay, so what you're saying is that if we're in the job def screen that you see behind, cancel out of this window real quick. So here on this screen, if we had an option to say, max concurrent or max queued, whatever, and you set that to 5, let's say, that would only allow 5 to pile up. Since it's scheduled, we'd automatically be, so I guess the question to you would be, if I've got 5 queued up and I'm ready to run the next one, I would just toss away that trigger at that point and say, well, I don't need you, just, and then the scheduler would automatically calculate the next execution time. And if those 5 are still pounding away for some reason, it would skip that one and skip that one until, less than 5 or whatever the number you set. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Every time it's happened, it's been like on a Sunday. So I think it's when Ed's doing maintenance on the servers or something, but I end up having to restart JobServer to clear out the queue. So it'd be
Okay.
neat.
Maximum. Yeah, I had the. You can imagine too if you look at, if you were to look at some of the details in the jobs that I had when I was doing my part of the UI walkthrough, it's easy to create jobs that fight for each other. So last night I was doing some testing and I created a similar set of jobs, and I came in this morning right before this and I found that I had like 300 jobs in the queue because command line could only be run as 2 different instances. So I had a whole crap load of jobs, and the only option I have at my disposal right now is to disable the job and let the the process catch up with everything that's there. So one, if I had to kill ready, I could kill a bunch of them, and then 2, if I had a limiter on the total number of queued jobs, that would have also helped the process. So it's definitely a good idea. Maximum number queued jobs. All right. Anything else, Matt? I mean, just can you give us a couple of good feedback items there?
Oh, the only other thing and I think actually this is maybe already there, but when you created a job, you had to go in after you created it and enable it. I'm wondering if there could be a checkbox on the creation screen that's just,
There
enable
is.
on create. Okay,
Yeah,
I
there
thought
is.
maybe there was, and I just missed it.
So
But
there's
there in front of us, that enabled, right?
Yeah. So there's been
Okay.
some debate on whether or not a new job should be enabled by default, or should we be forcing, so the compromise is, okay, we put the button here, we're not checking it by default, and you have to take a positive action to turn the job on.
That's perfect. I mean, I imagine for me, most jobs are going to be, simple single-step jobs, and I'll just want it enabled and not have to go into the second screen. And that checkbox is perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that you and or Bob in the environment will actually find a practical use for some multi-step jobs.
I do have a practical use for it.
I mean, I know that I think we talked about the one where we've got we're doing the ADP integration where we're fetching data from with the custom module. We could then have the processing step that does the SQL load as step 2, and then there was the other one. You were doing an FTP, right? That was the missing.
There's the MSO report. So I'm pulling the missed opportunities from the freight tracking company. So they put it on their FTP site, and I go out and fetch it, and then an hour later I process it because that's the only way I have to do it. Or no, actually I think I've got it set up as a file watcher. So I have one thing that goes out, grabs it from FTP and puts it in the folder, and then I've got a file watcher watching that folder for that file to show up, and I process it. But I kind of, since the first part is scheduled, I wanted to engineer it so that I could get a notification if they don't post the FTP file.
Right.
So just stringing some of those things together, I think helps. I mean, I think in that one, I've kind of worked out a solution that works okay.
Well, let me mention one other thing. It's like there's just so much that sometimes I'm just forgetting. Like I said, either there's some things that we're not quite done yet, or we're not started yet, that we are going to do, and then there's some things that are there that I just keep forgetting that we have that are worth mentioning. The new module base class will have a method for send email, and so and it will take, it will use, if you want to use that mechanism, it'll send to whoever's the registered DevOps person for the job server. So, you could create that step that says, send a message that says, I didn't find the file. I've started the That's actually one of the things that I keep thinking about is how can we make this a richer environment? It's a problem in terms of figuring out how best to make the UI richer so that you can manage all this stuff. But some of the things that we're just talking about here is that we actually have, because of the interconnects that we have internally, I could actually give the job itself the ability to set the next runtime. So for example, if you're scheduled to run at 10 a.m. by trigger and you run at 10 a.m. and you can't find the file, you could actually
Say,
on
wait 30
your
minutes
finish
later.
say, yeah, set your next runtime for 30 minutes from now or an hour from now or whatever. And so the job itself, the step itself could say, I can't really do anything. Here, set the next runtime and don't proceed to the next step.
Oh, see, I love this because I'm already picturing in my mind, I would set that job to run when I expect the file. If the file's not there, run in 5 minutes and increment an out variable. And if that out variable hits 20, mark the whole thing as a failure and send the failure notification.
Yeah, you could do that.
Because like I could put an out variable to kind of count how many times I've hopped or the total time or something.
Exactly. So yeah, so I'm looking at ways that the steps themselves can interact with their overall environment, whether they're the ones that we create from the start or whether there's just different ways. One of the things that I had noodled with but wasn't sure that has a real use case is persisting. I mean, we've had some plugins that needed to write some data to say, oh, this is the last time I ran, so I want to make sure that I run, I want to do something with respect to that. So the thought was, well, should we provide a way for a job to have a persistence mechanism, even if it's just like a JSON block that they can write out when they're done and read back in at a later time, something like that. So almost like, well, what we would call a property bag in the old days of storing data. So that's an idea. And
property bag, that's a way of saying a cookie, right?
We never, yeah. I mean, back. I'm dating myself back to when, Visual Basic was still a major development tool. Writing controls and things that they had the notion of a property bag that was essentially, I mean, it's not unlike a cookie, but it was essentially a key value pair structure that you could save, and that when you created a control, you could get data in and out of the control through what it referred to as the property bag. So, I mean, that's an option, to provide. But my goal also is to make sure that the persons that have to implement things are as straightforward as possible. Like you saw Lee just, bat out that plugin pretty quickly. So I'd want to have, support functions for whatever we do with this these extended capabilities. All right. Anything else? Anything else? You have that? You got that email? All right. I like those two ideas. I'm going to add them to our to-do list and see how we can come up with. Matt, I think it's time for you to just install this someplace and start
I'm gonna do it.
experimenting with some.
Give me an installer.
All right, Lee, you heard him. So Lee, get Matt an installer with the current build.
Okay.
And can.
And I could even put that on my prod server and just move 1 or 2 jobs into it that are lower priority things and see what happens.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's the extent of it. Just once again, you guys all have my email address. Feel free to reach out with questions or ideas, something you think you might need. And well, I guess we're adjourned, right? So, thanks, Lee, for helping out with the.
Yep. Thank you.
So, all right, Matt, can you, if you can wrap up the recording for us and shoot that
Yeah.
to me, I'd much oblige.
that.
We're great. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.